Hi, Kathy. Sorry for the delay on this. I'm gonna kind of give you a little tutorial about how to handle an elastic waistband. I opened up the file that you sent, and this is kind of the state it was in. I'm gonna work with what you have, but to kind of deconstruct this little, tiny little bit. I'm gonna do this. I know this is your front, and this is your back. I'm gonna organize it so the front is actually over the front silhouette. And instead of working as like front and back, I'm gonna work as left and right. So I'm actually just gonna delete this. I know that's the one that has the elastic on it, but you'll kind of see what I'm gonna do in a minute. I'm also gonna just delete the sewing and kind of start from scratch. Oh, she is back there. Okay, I'm going to delete her and bring in an avatar into the center. Okay. So this is going to actually start out as being my front wearer's left panels. And because this is now, I'm going to now actually just make this half the width that it was, because I will unfold it and get my other half so I can start shrinking and then say 50%. Okay, so these two pieces are your outer shell, and this is actually going to act as the elastic piece inside of your skirt. Before I start, I am going to duplicate this so I actually have my back side, my back wearer's left side, and wearer's front left side. I'm going to take these and actually move them out of my way. And oh, sorry, this I'm gonna combine these pieces. This can be together. We'll keep this as being a side seam, but the waistband I'll merge also. Okay, inside waistband, piece that acts as the elastic, you're going to place that first. Then I'm going to take this and I'm just going to put it here, but then actually move it down so it is around the body. I actually think this is going to be too big. I'm going to shrink this down completely. So this is 18, that'll be 36 finished. That's still a little bit big. Was it 18? Did I miscount? So that'll be 30, about 30 inches finished. That's fine. We can adjust after. Okay, this is the front panel that's going to go there. Let me put this piece back. Okay, so outside waistband is kind of hovering over the elastic piece. This is going to be my back. Just keep this organized. That will be my back piece. I'm going to put that there. Now that I'm done with the arrangement points, I always turn them off, and I'm going to start sewing this together. So here's my side seam. This is the waistband shell piece. And then this is the elastic, which basically fully attaches to my external waistband. Okay. Now that that's there, so the only area that gets actual elastic is the piece that is acting as the elastic waistband. Only the top and bottom edge, I'm going to select them, turn elastic on, but I'm not going to shrink it at all. I'm going to type in 100, which is actually going to stabilize this edge so it kind of dominates these other edges that it's attached to. Now that I have this all together, I'm going to make my symmetrically linked copy. So when I want to start editing, like making it wider or longer, it will all apply to both sides and the work is a little bit faster. Let's close our waistband. And I'm going to close my center back and my center fronts. Okay, now I'm going to hit simulate, and because I put elastic at 100% on only this piece, it's going to hold that all in. So you see, just to demonstrate, if this was not there, if I take it off, I'm going to uncheck it and then simulate. Well, this is a very tight garment. I'm going to widen the skirt. Because then we'll make this very full. Actually, let me do it this way. So I've added a lot of fullness, but I did not increase the elastic part. So that's going to hold, now that there is no actual elastic on that edge, it kind of tries to fall down. Take this, turn it back on. It's at 100. Okay, so this is doing what I wanted to do. Another thing that can occur when the elastic, if it's very, very tight, this is actually probably very tight. I'm going to widen it a little bit. Is that it's always going to slide up to kind of like the point, the narrowest point on the body. So if I want to pull this down, and in a little bit I'll show you how to make this actually look very nice and gathered. But if I wanted to move this so it sits at a lower location, I'm just going to widen this again. Ooh, not that. Just this. Okay. She has now some room to breathe. If I want this to sit at a lower point, what I'm going to do is click on the avatar, and she has a friction property. It's called kinetic friction. It's at 0.05 by default. If I increase this, the highest it will go to is 1. I will increase that, and now she has her skin is almost kind of sticky is what I call it, and if I take the garment and push it down, so I want it to sit here instead, and then simulate, it's going to stick to basically that location. It's not going to be able to slide up her skin because she now has a little bit of friction on there. Cool. Okay. Just going to make this like a little bit flouncy. But all waistbands, I do this basically the same technique if it's a constructed elasticated waistband. Just give this some movement. Okay. I'm going to unpile my patterns so I have some room. Okay. So the waistband will always kind of look really like not so great until you move into high resolution, and I'm gonna point out the key things to kind of always look for. So one of the things that you can change and you should change is the sewing relationship where the elastic attaches to your waistband. The top, that seam, CLO is trying to force it to press open, so like almost that this seam would be flat. There's a lot of things resisting that right now, but the first thing I'm going to do is, with the Edit Sewing tool, select the sewing relationship and then change the sewing line type to turned. I'm going to simulate and see if I can see any difference, but that edge will then be allowed to hinge a little bit more. Now I'm going to basically just move into high resolution. It always is going to look puffy and bulky like this until I take the whole garment. I am going to use the high res button, click on that. So it's going to adjust my particle distance of every piece to be down to 5. It's going to remove some of the collision a little bit so it'll flatten out, and then a couple other things. One of the other things that is, it moves to complete nonlinear simulation, which is the highest quality simulation that you can basically look at your fabric in. So it automatically switches it to that, just going over these settings. All I'm going to do is hit OK. You're going to see this garment adjust, and suddenly the simulation arrow is going to be like a double arrow, and it will be red. Now I'm going to simulate, and we're going to watch the waistband relax and flatten out and get really nice and gathered looking. So, okay, so this is where it is so far. One of the things I can do also, I'm actually going to go out of high res because there are a couple other things I can show you to adjust. Whenever you have very full gathered pieces, you can select the edges of those pieces. I'm only selecting the waistband shell, and I'm actually going to select the top edge of the skirt. And I'm going to switch into a mesh view so you can see what this is doing. So I'm going to select these edges, and there's now a property called shearing. I will check that on, and it makes the edges of that piece have an incredibly small mesh on only this concentrated area. And it ends up getting this, like, this more defined look for the shearing. I'm going to simulate and see what I get so far. So this is with just shearing applied. It does this, actually. I'm always really not a fan of the way it looks, but I may end up, I'm actually going to take it off the skirt. You know what? I'll leave it. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to move into high resolution, and we're going to see how this looks. Okay, and then I'm going to simulate so the mesh can adjust to the new changes. So once you turn simulation on, because complete nonlinear is the highest quality, it's also the slowest moving. So you definitely want to turn it on and just be patient and watch your garment until you basically see that it has stopped moving. So you can move around and rotate. Just try not to click on anything or try not to pull the fabric, because your lag will be kind of just annoying. But I can rotate around pretty smoothly and see how this is going. I'm going to give it a little, see this movement that you see? There will be a point where it stops. So as you wait and just let simulation run, basically the mesh is slowly relaxing and gathering in tightly. All right, I'm going to stop now. I'm going to click this, turn simulation off, and yeah, and now that is my waistband. I feel pretty good about that. The only other last detail that you can maybe change to get it a tiny, tiny bit flatter is what's called the collision thickness. So the pieces have this invisible buffer around them. We call it collision thickness. When you move to high resolution, it reduces the collision only a very small amount, but I can manually make this even smaller. So that 2 millimeters is an actual physical space on each side of the fabric. I'm going to make it 1 millimeter. And I'm going to turn simulation back on, and hopefully this will flatten out a tiny little bit. So there it goes. It gets a little bit tighter and a little bit closer together. I wouldn't reduce the collision down to 0. The lowest I personally ever go on anything is like 0.1 or 0.2. That's, you know, 0.1 or 2 of a millimeter. So it's honestly barely anything at all. I would do not reduce this until the mesh is smaller first, because the collision is what's keeping the fabric separated when the particle distance is big, but once the particle distance is smaller, you can remove that extra buffer of space. Okay, I'm going to turn that off, and that's it. Okay, so up until now, my back and my front were separated. You can merge these pieces together. I have a habit of working with just like a figurative seam at the front and back. But now that I'm done, I'm going to merge those together. You can merge anywhere where basically all the pieces. I'm going to merge the front. Because I'm in the high resolution, it's going to go very slowly even for the merging, but that's totally fine. I'm just going to be patient. I could have very well merged this further back before I went to high res. It wouldn't make a difference. Okay, so that's together and that's together. And then even these areas, because these are symmetrically linked, when you right click, you're going to see merge. You don't have to select the other side. It just knows that the only thing it's going to merge to is its partner. So this piece. Okay, so just to recap, the only section that gets elastic is the waistband elastic piece, and that elastic ratio is going to be set at 100, not at a reduced amount to make it shrink in. This piece is acting as the area that I want to shrink this piece to match, kind of just like the same way we would sew it in real life. And it's a good construction to use. So hopefully this helps you, and let me know if you have more questions. Bye.